Hey, everybody. So glad to see you all. Fala, Krusty, good to see you. Pammy, hey, darling. Sarah, okay. Matt might pop in for a second, then have to go. Understandable. Understand. Poor Fala. She's having to clean up before her vacation. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm a little late. It happens. I know. Unbelievable, isn't it? But tonight, I'm going to give a content warning because this is going to discuss child deletion, domestic violence, and mental health crisis. So we're covering the trifecta here, peoples. And I love you all for coming. And greetings to all my truth seekers and justice warriors. I'm your storyteller Z in the wilderness of injustice. I have my ride or die with me, Doc.
Hello.
He always rides shotgun. What can I tell you? Can't go anywhere without him. We're going to navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and the system fails. And we're going to shine the light on those systems tonight. So buckle up. The path ahead grows bumpy as we lead you through another section of the nightmare they call the justice system. And I'm so glad to welcome all my trial junkies. Tonight, we're going to talk about a case that has totally shaken Washington State to its core. And it exposed fundamental failures in our family court system. And today we're going to examine the Travis Decker case, a custody dispute that escalated from an initial civil divorce to the murders of 3 young sisters. Hey, therapist, so glad you're here. Might need you to throw some advice in here after we get to talking, because we're going to talk about some mental health issues. This story is about 3 little girls, Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia Decker, who should be playing in their backyard today. But instead, they became victims of a system that prioritize. Thank you, Doc. What he said. A father's rights over children's safety. I understand, Matt, and there is a warning on this one. So if someone's not in a good headspace, really, I understand. We love you, and it's okay. We're here for you. If you need us, reach out on our Discord server, which we do have, and the mods will put that up. If anyone just wants to chat, it's a good place to do that. Hey, Kimberly, glad you came. Yep, I'm a huge fan of JD's channel, and Jax is the one that got me on camera, because I don't like to be on camera. But so Matt, make sure if you need to pop in later, Krusty, Sarah, some of us will be around, and if you need to chat, we're there for you, dude. So, and I do want to involve that because of this, some people are not going to be in the right headspace for this content. So you take care of yourselves first. And the story you're about to hear is more than just one man's horrific actions, you guys. It's about multiple system failures for these girls and how it could have been prevented and how we can continue to prevent so it doesn't continue. Hey, William. And if this gets hard on you, William, I understand, because you have little girls. So, like I told everybody, if you have a hard time, hey, go hang out at the Discord server. We'll check in after the stream and see how everybody's doing. But let's start with the little girls, because they deserve to be remembered for more than just the victims of her crime. Paityn Lynn Decker was 9 years old. And this information comes from her grandfather, Whitney's dad, who gave an interview. And he said she had just run her first track meet and was excited about it. Her grandfather had just bought her a guitar for her upcoming birthday because she wanted to learn to play. Evelyn was 8, described by everyone who knew her as a sweet child who once gave her neighbor a friendship bracelet just for helping mow their lawn. Little Olivia, 5 years old, and had recently gotten a drum set from her grandfather. She was probably just starting to figure out what kind of a person she wanted to become. They're not just statistics, you guys. These were children with dreams and talents and had so much life ahead of them. They were in dance classes, theater productions, soccer games. Their father, Travis, was actually described as an active dad who attended all of their events. And that's what makes this, what happened next, incomprehensible for us. Now, the marriage between Whitney and Travis began unraveling in 2022. So, in the beginning, the divorce actually was amicable. Whitney filed in November of 2022, explicitly stating there are no protection orders needed, no concerns about abuse or neglect, and a parenting plan was finalized in March of 2023, giving Travis every other weekend visitation. So that seems normal, right, Doc?
Yep.
You know.
Sounds about right to me.
But by 2024, everything changed. Whitney returned to court in September of 2024. And she described Travis as transient because he was now homeless. She accused him of neglecting parental duties and cited long-term emotional and physical problems affecting his parenting ability. Most critically, she provided evidence that he had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and was struggling with the homelessness. Because at first, after their divorce, he had moved into the Armory there in Washington with other military guys. And then he got an RV. Then he went down to Idaho for a while, where his RV ended up getting repossessed. So now he was living in his truck. And here are some of the specifics that Whitney actually documented. And I'm quoting from some court documents. August 30th, 2023. He didn't want the girls this weekend, even though it was his weekend. He said, the girls walk on eggshells because of how I reprimanded my dogs. So think about that for a minute. Children so young that they're walking on eggshells because of their father's treatment of his dogs. Now, that's a red flag for escalating aggression if the children are scared. December 19th, 2023, Olivia FaceTimed her, screaming and crying. And Whitney said Travis was nowhere in sight. Paityn had to go find him, and he was with his dogs outside. And she told me Paityn was unattended in the Armory with Olivia playing on the lay pull-down machine and smashed Olivia's fingers. He wasn't comforting her. Olivia and Paityn were crying uncontrollably, and come to find out, they'd been sleeping in the Armory. So you have a 5-year-old that's injured. She's crying. Her 9-year-old sister has to go hunt down their father, who's ignoring them, to tend to his dogs. And both children are sleeping in a military facility, unsupervised, around adult strangers. I mean, that's wrong. And I can see where Whitney was concerned. It's really sad. July 25th, 2024, he hitchhiked to Whitney's house and asked to stay in the basement with the girls. He was 3 hours late, said he could pick the girls up from the play, but he was hitchhiking, so the stranger would have had to pick them up. This man was so unstable, he couldn't arrange his own transportation. But somehow the court thought he safely could transport his children. She noticed that Travis is able to attend events for our daughters. He's engaged and demonstrates a genuine love for them, which are meaningful and appreciated by the children. But Travis had some emotional and mental health issues that were primarily a catalyst to the end of our marriage. She wrote, his borderline personality disorder and narcissism, pin that word, narcissism, became rampant. Okay? Whitney said that Travis just keeps getting more and more unstable. He's made a huge sacrifice to serve our country and loves his girls very much, but he's got to get better for our girls. I do not want to keep Travis from the girls at all. So right there, you guys, you can see this was not a mother, trying to make waves. Right, Doc? She's not an
Yep.
hysterical mom.
I mean, she's both of them. Well, he's having issues, but she sounds, like she's trying to do everything she can to keep the relationship going.
Right. And she's not blaming him for these
Nope.
issues. She's saying he needs help. He needs to get better. I don't want to keep my children away from him. Now, we're going to pause here because this is where our system should have been protecting the children. Whitney was documenting a clear pattern of instability, mental health issues, and concerning judgment calls around child safety. Despite all the evidence, Whitney said something that shows just how much she was trying to work within the system. She said, he loves his girls. He served his country. She says, I just want him better. So it's not the vindictive ex-wife that we all, we've all seen those when that happens, where she makes up stuff. And that's why up to 41% of women, when they go to court with claims, don't get believed, because about 42, they said almost 41.9% of women are not believed when they say that there's abuse or situations that they're worried about. And it's because of those women that go to court and make claims that just aren't true. Okay? They make it worse for when there really are issues. So the court did respond to Whitney's concerns. So in September of 2024, Judge Robert Jordan found that there was adequate cause to modify the parenting plan. So he did order for Travis to undergo an anger management domestic violence evaluation, a psychiatric evaluation by a licensed psychiatrist, individual counseling sessions with a licensed mental health counselor at least twice a month. And therapists, that would seem logical, doesn't it? I mean, as a therapist yourself, I'm sure you can see where these things would benefit him. The court restricted Travis to only day visits now, no overnight stays. So that should have been the end of the story, right? Well, the system identified the risks, put protections in place, but then everything went catastrophically wrong. According to the court documents, Travis refused to sign the parental modification form. He did not seek any of the mental health, domestic violence, or anger management counseling the court had ordered. So to repeat, he failed to comply with any of the requirements, and he took the children on May 30th, 2025. Now, according to KIRO7 News out there in Washington, they reached out to the county to ask about the progress on those evaluations. There was no progress to report because he just didn't go. And therapists, you're right. You can't make them, but then they should not have allowed the children to go with him. If you refuse to follow a court order, why should you get to take the children? I mean, that would be my question. There should have been some, supervised visits, but this was going to be an unsupervised visit. The court let him take the children on an unsupervised visit. So despite his non-compliance with direct court orders, he was still granted unsupervised visitation. Yeah. The grandfather's devastating testimony, he said, was the most heartbreaking perspective in this case comes from Chris Richter, the girl's grandfather. He's speaking from his home up in Wisconsin, where he says he met enough markers laid out by court while homeless living in his truck, and they awarded him unsupervised visits. This was his very first unsupervised visit. Let me repeat that. He was homeless, living in his truck, had not completed any court order mental health evaluations, and was given his first unsupervised visit with his daughters on May 30th, 2025. And the girls never came home. Richter described Travis as initially just a military young guy with nothing evil about him, but believed he was tired of adulting, such as having 3 kids and going to work every day. After the divorce, Travis was going wild, drinking too much, and not paying child support. Now, Travis was raised by a father who was a Green Beret. So he was raised in a military family. And here's what makes this, and Chris Richter, the father-in-law, is also military. They didn't say what rank or what what he was in, what department, but he was a military man himself. So just 4 days before he killed his daughters, on May 26, 2025, Travis Googled, how does a person move to Canada? How to relocate to Canada? Jobs in Canada. And this is really chilling because this is why just saying it was a spontaneous act of violence, I'm having problems with. I think he was planning this whole thing.
Well, he had to be.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
He was researching his exit strategy while planning to take his children that day. Because this was May 26th, so this was before, okay? The location where the girls' bodies were found is just 11 miles from the Pacific Crest Trail, which leads directly to the Canadian border. So it wasn't random, and this was calculated. If you look on a map, the Pacific Crest Trail up there around that spot in Washington, it is just forests. I mean, yeah, it's hard. It would be hard to locate someone. So I'm going to walk you through what happened on May 30th so that we're clear about what Whitney observed that day, because there's conflicting reports here. Whitney's attorney, Ariana Cozart, has stated that despite some media reports requesting or suggesting Travis seemed quieter than usual, Whitney actually observed no unusual behavior from Travis when he came to pick up the girls on May 30th. And according to Cozart, the interaction was typical for the former couple. Whitney and Travis were in frequent contact, as they always were, regarding the children, things happening in Travis's life, and other topics. They had even discussed Travis's dog, Chinook, because he was getting concerned due to the high temperatures since he was living in his truck. So Whitney offered to let the dog live with her. So this is not a vindictive woman. Oh, Kimberly, I'm so sorry, darling. That's just wrong. The foster care system can be a mess. So let's go ahead and see what happens next. So the handoff seemed routine. Travis instructed the children to get their belongings and told Whitney, we'll be back at 8 p.m. Now, they did not take extra clothes or anything like that. When he said get their belongings, I'm sure they probably grabbed, shoes, coats, those kind of things that normal kids do. But no extra clothing. So this was not to be an overnight. The attorney, Cozart, emphasized that if Whitney had noticed any usual behavior, Whitney would not have allowed the visitation. So here's the timeline. 5 p.m., Travis picks up the girls for his scheduled visit. The interaction appears normal to Whitney. They discuss his dog, logistics, everyday co-parenting topics. At 5:40, Travis is captured on a camera driving north out of, I forgot how to say that now. Winnetachi? I don't know. Sorry, Washington. Don't mean to butcher your name. In a white GMC pickup truck, heading westbound on US Highway 2. At 8 p.m., the girls were supposed to be home, and they weren't. At 9:45 p.m., Whitney reports to the
Wenatchee.
Thank you, Doc. police that Travis didn't return with the children. And this is going to make the tragedy even more chilling, you guys. There were no final warning signs that day. Whitney had no reason to believe this routine custody exchange would be the last time she ever saw her little girls alive. And here's where I want to address something important. There have been various media reports about this case, and as someone who covers true crime, I know how details get distorted or sensationalized. Whitney's attorney, Ariana Cozart, recently had to clarify some reporting, stating, "It saddens me that Mr. Wynn," and here's a picture of Mr. Wynn because he wants to be famous, who was her neighbor. He was Whitney's neighbor. "It saddens me Mr. Wynn felt it necessary to share Whitney's grief with the press in this way." So he's made some comments. I'm not even going to talk about him because he didn't have the right. He even shared a text message between him and Whitney, and that wasn't right. He should have just been quiet. So Whitney is asking for grace and privacy during this unimaginable time, and just put yourself in her place. You know, yeah, you'd want some grace and some privacy. She's a mother who lost 3 children in the most horrific way possible, and she's been scrutinized, second-guessed at every turn. And that's something we need to be mindful of as we discuss this case. Because the point isn't to blame Whitney for not seeing a warning sign that day. The point is the system had months of documented warning signs, and they failed to act on them. Because if you stop and think about it, Doc, if she had dared to not let him have the children, he could have called the cops on her.
Well, yeah, I mean, things could have escalated right then and there, but there was no reason for her to do that.
No, because everything seemed normal.
Yeah.
You know? So it's important that we talk about that. So now, what's that police department's name?
Wenatchee?
Wenatchee. Sarah, don't laugh. I'm sure she is. Wenatchee police attempted to activate an Amber Alert twice on Friday. This is important, you guys. But the Washington State Patrol denied the requests, stating the case didn't meet the imminent danger criteria. An Amber Alert, when they trigger that statewide, that goes on TV, radio, highway signs, and cell phones. If you have it on your cell phone, Doc and I both do, sometimes those phones screech.
Yeah. What did they say? What time the Amber Alert was supposed to go out?
Well, no, they requested it, but the Washington State Patrol
right
denied it.
What I'm sorry, I'm not following. Is this the next day?
No, that's that night.
That night yet?
That night, the police department
Right.
asked twice for it to go out.
Got it.
And then the Washington State Patrol said no. They said the search, because it didn't meet their criteria. And that is, the criteria is they have to be in immediate danger. And they figured that this was a child custody thing. But what they were overlooking was he did not have permission for overnights. So this wasn't just you didn't meet our criteria. So the police they went out and because one of them found the camera with his truck leaving a certain area. So he went that direction, checking motels and looking. And they put out, the police department there was doing everything they could, but they weren't getting a lot of assistance. So on Saturday, May 31st, the State Patrol finally did an endangered missing person alert. But they'd lost a lot of time. And you have to remember an EMPA, which is an endangered missing person alert, is a very limited distribution. It's not like the Amber Alert. It doesn't trigger the emergency interruptions. So they lost time. And on Monday, June 2nd at 3:45 p.m., a Cleveland County Sheriff's deputy who was out searching found Travis's truck near Rock Island Campground, about 17 miles west of Leavenworth. The documents show flock cameras, other resources helped the authority. Moo. She's just getting naughty all the time. Moo. Come here. Come here, Moo. Here, have a treat. Isn't that terrible? Got to disrupt this so we can give this cat a treat because she's being naughty.
Yeah.
But so the flock cameras and other resources helped the authorities narrow down the search to an area at the Rock Island campground. The sheriff or the deputy found the truck. It had 2 bloody handprints on the back of the truck. About 75 to 100 yards away down an embankment, the deputies found the bodies of the 3 little girls. They had plastic bags wrapped around their heads. Their wrists were zip tied. And they appeared to have been suffocated. Hey, Rachel. So around the scene were scattered zip ties and plastic bags. These children suffered a terrible final moment. So we have to blame the systems that failed them, along with their father, because he is the one to blame. So as I record this, I check. He's still at large. It's the largest manhunt in Washington state history. They have over 100 law enforcement officers are involved, including FBI, U.S. Marshals, Border Patrol, and Homeland Security. The Washington National Guard has deployed helicopter support and additional resources at the governor's direction. Multiple counties and wilderness areas had been closed to the public for a while. Governor Ferguson is warning area residents to keep their doors and windows locked to avoid restricted areas. So an entire state's residents are being told to lock themselves in their homes because of one man with military training who murdered his 3 little girls. You know, hey, Kimberly. Yes, Moo usually is a good girl when we do a live. She usually just goes in her bed and takes a nap, but the last 2, she's been naughty.
Yeah, but last couple of nights that we've been on, she has just been a terror.
She's like, hey, I see my opportunity here. So the authorities have received over 500 tips, and there's $20,000 reward for information leading to his arrest because he's without his vehicle. And so that's why they think he's up in that area. The federal charges have now been included because on, I think it was June 2nd. Yeah, June 2nd, because it took them 3 days before they filed charges of an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, in addition to 3 counts of murder and kidnapping.
Hold it. Fallon needs to make
An
an unrelated comment.
Okay, Fallon, go for it. What's your unrelated comment, sweetheart? Are you picking on Rachel? The sheriff, yes. I know everybody is enthralled with that sheriff. I'm sorry, I should have put a picture up of him. That would have made you happy, I know. Therapist, also thinks he's hot. Okay. If y'all want to know, he is on YouTube. Okay, here we go, girls. You guys are so funny. But here's what makes this manhunt so challenging. Because Travis does have extensive military training. Decker was an infantryman in the Army from March 2013 to 2021. He was deployed in Afghanistan for 4 months in 2014. And according to Army spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Ruth Castro, from 2014 to 2016, he was an automatic rifleman with the 75th Ranger Regiment at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. We got a psych RN. Kimberly, you're going to be our new best friend because we have Rachel and we have therapists, Krusty, we will not ever judge you and other rangers or infantrymen on what this man has done, because this is all on him.
Oh yeah, that would be ludicrous to do something like that.
And please, Krusty, the creeds that you sent me, post them in our Discord server, because I think that's important. But he had advanced infantry combat training, airborne paratrooper skills, and what authorities describe as elite wilderness evasion and survival skills. Before joining the 403rd, Decker had reportedly been removed from the elite Ranger Regiment after failing to complete Ranger School. So despite public photos circulating of Decker in uniform with that Ranger tab, the sources say he actually wasn't a Ranger. The former squad mate described Decker as being quiet, a bit of an outcast, yet a hard worker, and here's that word I told you to pin, somewhat of a narcissist. Wasn't only his wife, Whitney, that talked about him being a narcissist. Something to think about. The two remained, the squad mate said the two of them had remained loosely connected on social media after their time in the military. And I'm sure Krusty can confirm that there are those guys from your squad that you're close to, and there are those that you loosely just exchange social media posts with or check on one another once in a while. And that seems like this was their relationship. But in the days following the murder, accusations and the sources said Decker deleted nearly all of his post photos, videos, and unfollowed most of his former comrades. All of us who serve with him feel betrayed and are beyond distraught with the news, the teammate said. So you can only imagine the people that had served with him, because we can see Krusty, who was with the military, how he feels. You know, it hurts him that someone that was, you know, one of those guys that he would have probably gone to combat with would turn around and do something like this. So the ones that actually were his squad mates, we can only imagine how they're feeling. I mean, that's betrayal, isn't it, Doc?
Yes, most definitely.
Oh, man. Well, he had currently signed up with the Washington National Guard, but he was in the midst of disciplinary process of being discharged because of missing drills with them. The National Guard confirmed it. But Sheriff Mike Morrison stated that Decker is well versed in outdoor survival and has previously lived off-grid in the backwoods for approximately 2.5 months. So the man who deleted his children is specially trained to evade capture and survival in wilderness conditions indefinitely. So the information we've shared about the roadblocks, they did remove them. And the road that the camp was on, Icicle River Road, has been reopened also. And so but the searches are still going on. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel are continuing their searches for the triple murder suspect on forest land, in river valleys, and in buildings. The authorities are telling everyone to, remain vigilant, and to check out the recreational areas before they go into them. So, I can see that. I can see why you might feel that way, Krusty, that his brothers failed him. But the residents are, okay. And so if anyone comes across something unusual while hiking or exploring the woods, especially if they believe it may help the investigation, they encourage to mark the location using a phone or a GPS, report the time and place to the authorities. They're telling everyone, if you see him, don't approach him. You get a hold of 911, because they're scared of what he would do, because he's cornered now. But let's talk about how this tragedy was the perfect storm of institutional failures. There is a family court bias, which I touched on that was research done by Joan Meyer found that courts believe less than half, only 41.9% of mothers who allege abuse by fathers. There's what experts call an embedded and unstated bias against believing that fathers are dangerous to the children. Courts often show a troubling pattern where they may actually give more custody to fathers when mothers raise safety concerns. Now, that's the study I had found. I'm not saying it's always that way, but, the lack of mental health, understanding many family court judges lack the proper education about domestic violence and abuse dynamics, including coercive control. The pattern Travis was exhibiting where abusers use intimidation and control tactics. Failure to recognize warning signs. The courts often miss the red flags like mental health diagnosis, homelessness, noncompliance with court orders, and histories of instability. You would think at this point in time that more courts would have more knowledge or have people come in like a psychologist or a therapist that could advise them, instead of them just making blanket rulings without really considering the mental health of someone. Because we're seeing how the mental health of everybody affects our daily lives in all different aspects. We've had police shootings where mental health has been a factor with, the victim or perhaps the officer. That's a good point, Rachel. The person has to show up for the appointments. But I mean, even for the judges to really have the advice, enough of an education about mental health that it is an issue. It's not something to look at lightly. Even if they haven't talked to the litigant, what about if they just get a basic knowledge of a borderline personality? Because that was what he was diagnosed with. And so that, that could show one of the symptoms, because he wasn't really comforting his daughter when she hurt herself on the weight machine. That could kind of go along with that borderline personality from what I had read, is how they just don't have that, that fellow feeling at time. Was that, I don't know if that's how you put it. It is a complex case. Yeah, everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Yeah, it can present, in
Yeah.
a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to. It's not a cookie cutter type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and even medications don't react the same in everybody. Some people can take things and some can't. Now, Whitney said she didn't think he was taking anything. Okay. Yeah, I understand, Krusty. You guys hold each other to a certain, degree of accountability. Now, in Vermont, he would have had to go through a mental health evaluation. Yeah. Well, see, that was another thing. He had 2 car accidents in the month of May. I don't think they were major car accidents, but he'd been stopped twice. And that's true, Krusty, because truthfully, only somebody else that was there, totally understands what you've been through. I could see how you guys would hold each other accountable. I understand, Rachel. You can only do so much to convey it to the court. Yeah. So the domestic violence experts consider the period immediately following separation to be the most dangerous time for victims and children. Yet courts continue ordering unsupervised visits during this critical time. The flight risk assessment, because that was one thing his father-in-law brought out was, hey, he had a passport. He took the children on May 30th. They didn't even file the warrant until June 2nd. He had a 3-day head start on everybody. So who knows where he is? Yes, they're looking up there, but who knows? The system completely failed to assess Travis's ability to flee. He does have military training. He has the survival skills. He did those internet searches for Canada, and it's very close to a very unsecured international border. But who's to say he went that way? Was he planting evidence, trying to make everyone look up there while he goes a different direction? I mean, it's just a thought. It's just something to think about. So this isn't an isolated incident, you guys, because according to the Center for Judicial Excellence, since 2008, nearly 1,000 children have been killed by parents during custody disputes. About 140 of these cases were deemed preventable due to court failure. A child dies every 6 days amid custody fights, with fathers being perpetrators 70% of the time. So every 6 days, a child, because the family court system fails to adequately protect them, dies. They did say that usually if they're younger, a lot of times it can be the mother that is the perpetrator, like if they're infants, which I thought was interesting. But they said a lot of times if it's multiple children, a lot of times it's the father, but not always. We've seen the cases where it wasn't. William, thank you for coming, darling. You get some sleep. You got work tomorrow. We'll chat in the Discord server. And hey, if one of the mods is still around, if you guys could put that Discord server up there, or Doc will put it in the description too.
Yeah.
Because you're welcome to come chat. So what reforms could prevent this tragedy? Let's ask that question. Mandatory compliance verification. Courts should not grant unsupervised visitation to parents who haven't completed a court order evaluation or treatment. I mean, that would, if you can't see your kids until you do it, that gives you the chance to, hey. Flight risk assessment. Courts need protocols to assess whether a parent has the means, motive, and opportunity to flee with the children. Especially when you're talking about someone with military training or survival skills. That should be considered. We know financially he might not have had the money because he was homeless, but we don't know, with his survival skills, what he could do out in the wilderness. Mental health screening, mandatory current mental health evaluations for parents experiencing housing instability, substance abuse, or other risk factors. That should be mandatory. Amber Alert reform. The criteria for issuing the Amber Alerts needs to be re-examined. When a parent with documented mental health issues and court-ordered restriction fails to return the child. Because that was something they weren't considering was, yes, he had the right to visit his kids, but not for overnight. So they were the state patrol was treating it as just a custody issue. No. He had a court order not to have them overnight. And judge education. Comprehensive training for family court judges on domestic violence dynamics, coercive control, and risk assessments. Send them back to school. Let them get some training. They need to be updated. Sometimes we get some old judges in there, and they don't have this information. Real-time monitoring. Technology solutions to track compliance with court orders and alert the system when parents fail to complete required programs. If you don't do the training, guess what? You don't get the kids. You do it, okay. But behind all these policy discussions are 3 little girls who won't get to grow up. Paityn will never learn to play her guitar. Evelyn will never give out another friendship bracelet. And Olivia's never going to master those drums. Their mother, Whitney, has to live with the knowledge that she tried to protect them. She documented the risks and was still failed by a system that was supposed to keep her children safe. She did what she was supposed to do. The grandfather, Chris Richter, is advocating for changes in how child visitation rights are handled, hoping this tragedy will spur changes that could save other kids. Um, and that was something was that they said the day before, on May 29th, before he took the kids, that when they got his phone data from Google, they actually found out he had been out at that campground. So that to me is another sign that he was planning where he was taking them that nobody else knew about. What do you think, Doc?
Well, yeah. And, just thinking about this whole um, reformation that we've been discussing for the last um, the court systems and how they need to change. Um, as long as you have, you know, as long as you have the what 41% of mothers that basically come into court and lie through their teeth.
Well, no, they're not the ones that lie. They're the ones that don't get help because of mothers that lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bottom line, I got the statistic wrong, but when you're talking about a system that inevitably doesn't believe a lot of mothers,
Yeah.
and it's a direct correlation with you know people that lie. So it's another situation where you know good people have to pay for what bad people
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
bring to light, and it becomes a situation where people the system is flawed because they're now jaded because of what some of what people are saying.
Yeah. Some terrible parents
Yeah,
make terrible decisions, go in there and lie to the court, make up stories, get their kids to just tell lies.
and the ones that really want to follow, what's good and what's the best for the children, well, they have to pay for it.
Yeah. So I guess if they find out someone's been lying, they need to hold them accountable.
Yeah. Well,
Don't make everybody else suffer because of some bad actors out there.
mhm.
So that you're right. I agree with that. So we have problems here. They need to be fixed. And if you're a parent going through a custody dispute and you're concerned about your child's safety, document everything, be persistent. Don't let anyone tell you that you're being overprotective when you're trying to protect your children from documented risks. Ask your local candidates about family court reform. Judges are often elected officials, and they need to know that communities expect them to prioritize child safety over parental rights when the two conflict. The Travis Decker case represents one of the most preventable tragedies we've covered. The warning signs were there. Therapists, I was thinking of Josh and Susan Powell because that was an instant where they actually did have a supervised visit. And what did Josh Powell do? He locked this before the supervisor could get in the house with the children in him. He locked the door, and then he took his life and also his children's. So yeah, that was a crazy case. But see, with this guy, some people thought that maybe that's what he was planning. I don't think he was, because he was looking up jobs in Canada. He's disappeared, because if that's what he was going to do, he would be there with his children. He's not.
Yeah. What transpired to? Because it sounded like he wanted to take the kids and go to Canada. I mean, what prompted him to do what he did? That it's a disgusting situation. It
Yeah.
really is.
And therapists, you're right about Josh's dad. That dude is sketchy. That whole, there are people that are still trying to find Susan Powell. They're still trying to find her. There's a group, and I can't think of their name right now, But there is a group that is still, every now and then, they go out there to that desert area and look for her. So she hasn't been forgotten. But yeah, that was a sad situation. And this one is too. I mean, those 3 little girls are just so precious. But the system had multiple opportunities to protect those 3 little girls, Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia. Instead, we had inadequate risk assessment, a failure to enforce court orders led to the death of 3 innocent children, and created one of the largest manhunts in Washington state history. Decker may have pulled the trigger, metaphorically speaking, but he had a lot of help from a system that failed at every level. As long as Travis remains free, families across Washington are living in fear. And parents are afraid to let their children play outside. The community's traumatized by this because those little 3 girls are gone forever. We can't bring them back, but we can honor their memory by demanding changes that might save the next children at risk. If you have information on Travis, call 911 immediately. Don't approach him. He is extremely dangerous, and they're worried about his survival skills. The CCSO tip line is 509-667-6845. They also have a website to put information on. So let's all remember those little girls. Remember their names. Remember they died because society failed them. We didn't get them protected like we should have. Oh, and therapists, Josh, there is the Susan Cox Powell Foundation. That's good to know. We'll have to check that out. So I have 2 missing people that we'll quickly go over. We have Destiny Begay. She's been missing since May 4th, from Grants, New Mexico. She's only 15 years old. Destiny was last seen in Grants, New Mexico, and if you have information about her whereabouts, please call the Grants Police Department at 505-287-9476. She's got brown eyes, brown hair, 4'11", 115 pounds. She's American Indian, so contact the New Mexico Department of Public Safety at 1-800-457-3463. And let's see. Oh, did I not put the other one in there? Okay, real quickly, I will find his information. Here we go. This is Devin Disnichi. He's 22. He's been missing since May 13th from Gallup, New Mexico. He's Native American, brown eyes, brown hair, 5'8", 138 pounds. Last seen wearing a dark blue polo shirt, gray sweats, and black shoes. He has a tattoo, a dice with "Life is a Gamble" on the right hand and a scar on the left hand and left eyebrow. He was last seen at 2811 Dairy Drive around 4:22 p.m. on the 13th of May. If you have any information, contact the Gallup Police Department at 505-863-9365 and 505-722-20202. Those are the 2 numbers you can contact for him. So, in conclusion tonight, every killer relies on your silence. Don't be why we share another story on the channel. If you know something about Travis Decker's whereabouts, speak up. Because as we know, it's never a mannequin. And I'm sure that policeman, that deputy that found those little girls wish it was. Until next time, stay informed, be compassionate, and let's all seek justice. We'll put our server in the description. Please come join us. What we're trying to do with our server is we're trying to get a group of people that are interested in not only true crime, but in trying to help. We look at cold cases. Let's see if we can help identify some of these people. Let's see if we can help find some of these missing as a group. So just please give it a chance. And I have cats screaming at us right now. So I guess we'll say goodnight. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. You all have a good night. Ciao. What is your malfunction, baby girl?